Once upon a time in a vibrant city was a popular school called the Future Stars Academy. The school welcomed little ones between the tender ages of 3 and 9. It meant that it wasn't a place for big children or teenagers. It was for the young, just kindergarten, nursery and primary. The parents of the children who attend Future Stars Academy were not just regular people. They were people with busy lives and busy work schedules, working long hours. These parents were especially in industries such as banking and healthcare, always busy and barely had time. But they found relief and were relaxed, knowing that even in school, their children were in safe hands. This is because Future Stars Academy does a good job in not only grooming the children academically, but also doing a good job in the children's welfare. Usually, it was common for young children to dread going to school and would try to be allowed to stay back at home. But it wasn't so for the children who attend Future Star Academy. They were always excited to be at school. They felt comfortable and happy at school because the teachers and every single staff of the school were warm, gentle, and teach and groom the children with love and patience. One amongst these staff, and which was most loved by the children, was a woman called Miss Happy. Miss Happy was a middle-aged woman of 56 years old. She was one of the school's minder, employed to look after and assist the children in the school. Her duties include helping the young children with basic needs like tying shoelaces, using the toilets, supervising them during breaks, meals, and even while they play. She was very friendly and warm, and it was not only the children who loved her, even other staff and the teachers do. She wasn't just seen as a minder, she was seen more like a mother figure. Young children would cry for her to carry them or would refuse to eat their food unless it was Miss Happy who fed them, or would refuse to use the restroom unless it was her who took them there. But the most thing Miss Happy was loved for was the task of cutting and trimming young children's fingernails. Part of the Future Star Academy's tenets was upholding and highly inculcating cleanliness and neatness in their pupils. One of the mantras they teach their pupils is that cleanliness is next to godliness. The parents do well in bringing their children to school in a neat and clean appearance. However, one thing majority of the parents fall short of was trimming their children's fingernails. They were so busy and preoccupied that they usually forget to trim their children's nails, majorly especially parents of the younger children. And though they had maids and nannies in their homes and would instruct them to do the nail trimming for them, even the maids and nannies most times forget because they are preoccupied with house chores and other errands. And so, Miss Happy took it upon herself to help the children trim their nails. At first, it all started with trimming the nails of a particular young child whose parents seemed not to care at all about his nails. Later, a few other young children whose parents had forgotten to trim their nails over the weekend started going to her.
Please, Miss Happy, can you help me trim my nails also? My mom was so busy and forgot to trim mine over the weekend.
These young children would ask gently and politely in their cuteness and tiny voices. Miss Happy would gladly help them out, and before she knew it, More children were coming to her with the same request. And despite how many they were, she trimmed the nails so fast, neatly and carefully. Soon, it became a thing as these children go back home to chat about how Miss Happy helped them trim their nails at school. The parents, though embarrassed at first, were quite grateful. So every morning as they dropped their children at school, they would thank Miss Happy and extend a cash gift to her. But she refused. However, some parents were very insistent, and so she only accepted gift items and not money occasionally when offered. With time, the number of children Miss Happy gets to trim their nails weekly increased, as even the few other children that their parents get to trim their nails started crying at home that they want to get their nails trimmed at school by Miss Happy, because they saw their classmates and friends in school always getting their nails trimmed by Miss Happy, and they felt left out.
No, mommy, no. It is Miss Happy that I want to trim my nails.
The children would say at home to their parents and would cry loudly. One of such children is a young boy whose name is Jesse and is 5 years old. Jesse's mother, Caroline, was a single parent who lost her husband in an accident a year after Jesse was born. She works in the bank and was also very busy like other parents whose children attended the Future Stars Academy. However, she always creates time to take care of her son. To her, Jesse was her life and all she had. So, she made time to bond with him and take proper care of him, despite her busy work schedule. Caroline is a junior staff in the bank, so she didn't have the luxury of spending extra by hiring the services of a maid or nanny for her son Jesse. She only paid for after-school care in Jesse's school, which was reasonable for her, before she returns to pick him after work every day. Every day, she made time to cook meals, help Jesse out with his take-home assignment from school, and go through his books and any other thing required of her, no matter how tired she was. And trimming of his nails is one thing she ensures that she does. She checked his nails regularly and trimmed them whenever they needed trimming. However, Jesse, like other children his age in his school, began also to cry that his mother should not trim his nails whenever she wanted to.
No, mommy, don't do it. If you do it, Miss Happy will not be able to do it for me like she does for my friends,
Jesse said. At first, Caroline ignored him and continued trimming his nails herself. But every time she does, Jesse would cry and even struggle to remove his hands from her grip. That one time, he almost made her enjoy him. Caroline was not okay with this. She believed that as a responsible parent, her child's nails should be trimmed at home and should not be left for the teachers or minders at school. So at first, even as Jessie cried, she continued to trim his nails herself at home. However, soon, she could no longer bear how so loudly he cried and would even develop a temperature because of his loud cries. So, she eventually left his nails and allowed Miss Happy to do it at school, just as Jessie wanted. "Don't worry, ma'am. I am more than glad to do it," Miss Happy said to Caroline as she spoke about it with her one morning when she dropped him off at school. And so it was. Caroline stopped trimming her son's fingernails and left it for it to be trimmed at school by Miss Happy. One morning, Caroline was bathing her son to prepare him for school, and as the water touched his body, Jesse let out a sharp, shrill cry.
Ouch, mommy! My hand! It is paining me!
He said. Where? His mother asked him, and Jesse pointed to a spot around his arms. Caroline saw a mark on her son's hand. It looked like what was caused as a result of a deep, sharp fingernail scratch. Caroline wondered where it came from because it wasn't there the night before. She was certain of this because she did bathe and cream him before putting him to sleep, and so would have taken note of it if it were there, because she was also a very careful person who take keen notes of things. She looked at Jesse's nails. They were neatly trimmed short. Miss Happy has indeed been doing a good job. So, Caroline couldn't say that Jesse may have unconsciously scratched himself while he slept at night. Well, because she was running late for work, she put it aside and quickly applied first aid and get him ready for school. However, 2 weeks later, Caroline noticed this again. A different area in her son's body. Sharp scratch marks. And his nails still very short and well trimmed. She noticed it the third time another week. It became frequent. Sharp scratch marks, which was never there the night before, only always appearing in the morning. So, Caroline began sleeping less as she would sit up at night for long, watching to see how these marks came about. But she saw nothing. Then one day, her mother came visiting from the village, and the next morning, when Caroline saw these marks when bathing Jesse, she mentioned it to her mother. Have you ever stopped to think if this is not ordinary and maybe spiritual? Her mother asked. Caroline told her mother that she hadn't thought towards that angle. Her mother advised her that she should speak to her pastor about it. And Caroline did the next Sunday they were in church. Her pastor gave her an holy oil to anoint Jesse before bedtime and a few prayer points to say at night while she watched him. Caroline thanked the pastor and left. That night, she did as the pastor instructed. She rubbed the holy oil on Jesse's forehead before putting him to sleep, and then began to pray the prayer points the pastor gave her. Halfway into her prayer, Caroline saw her son's nails mysteriously grow so long. The nails were black and so long as though it was a fixing of an artificial long black nails. Caroline screamed and ran away from the bedroom into the living room and couldn't even complete or say the remaining prayer points. The next morning, her son was normal and the nails were no longer there. Caroline became so scared that she took permission from work, feigning an unavoidable emergency, so she could go see the pastor. After listening to her, the pastor prayed, and then he got to know through divine revelation that the problem was from Jesse's school. So he asked to follow Caroline to the school when she would go pick him up that afternoon. That afternoon, immediately as they walked into the school premises, Miss Happy, whom everyone knew to be so calm-spoken, gentle, and with always a friendly smile, suddenly started growling like an angry tigress who was ready to attack. Her eyes suddenly became reddened and dark. Her front teeth suddenly became long, and her fingernails also, so long and were black. "Why have you come to meddle in my business? Leave here now!" she yelled, pointing at the pastor, and everywhere trembled. The whole school became chaotic. Children running and crying as they shouted, "Mommy, Mommy!" The teachers looking confused and scampering for a place to hide. Parents crawling on the ground and searching with their eyes for their children. Everyone was scared. No one had ever seen Miss Happy this way. They were confused, scared, and wondered what was going on. And the pastor, knowing already what he was coming to face before he got there, was already praying fervently and pleading the blood of Jesus on the children as he prayed, while Miss Happy conjured, pointing her two ends at the pastor and wriggled her body like a witch. After a moment of an intense spiritual battle, Miss Happy fell flat, defeated. She confessed that she was a witch who had lived for many centuries. Every century, she performed a blood sacrifice to remain young and immortal. And that's now that she was required to constantly sacrifice children's blood. So, she came to the school where there are children to work as a minder. According to her, her initial plan was to secretly cut the children's hair and use for a sacrifice. But there were CCTV surveillance cameras everywhere in the school, so she found it difficult. Then, she saw an opportunity to trim the children's nails and so used that. After trimming their nails, she doesn't dispose of them, but secretly takes it home to her shrine to conjure the children whose nails she had trimmed to cut themselves at night and send the blood to her through her own evil nails that appeared on them at night. And that was why these scratch marks appeared on Jesse's body. Well, it wasn't only Jesse the scratch marks appeared on, or whose blood was being slowly sucked by Miss Happy. It was every other children in the school whose nails Miss Happy trimmed. Unfortunately, majority of the parents get too busy to notice what is going on with their children, let alone on their children's body. Until, well, thank God for Caroline's keen observation. After Miss Happy confessed, she stopped breathing and her body mysteriously disappeared. The parents and teachers were now so shaky and scared by this revelation. And from that day, the school forbade anyone to help children with things like trimming of nails, combing of hair, and the likes, and urged parents to ensure that they make out time to see to their children's welfare and hygiene themselves, while they on their own part pray and sought God before employing any staff. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I am sure you got the lessons in the story. Drop them in the comment section to let me know you do. Please like before you go, share, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next story. Bye.